Hi, and welcome to the first episode of Fun with Azure. I'm Todd Elliott.
And I'm Martin Abbott.
So, Martin, this week, what's been happening in Azure?
Thanks, Todd. For me, there are three interesting stories this week. The first one is regarding StoreSimple. StoreSimple now supports blob storage, and both hot and cold storage. Now, you may remember a few weeks ago, cool storage was released to much fanfare, and it's basically an opportunity for you to archive data and access it less frequently at a lower price point. Well, it's now been released that StoreSimple will support both hot and cold storage. The second interesting story this week, I think, is around DocumentDB. Now, anybody who knows me knows that that's one of my favourite platform services. It was announced during build that there was a new pricing model that was coming out for DocumentDB, and that was important because at the time, the pricing model for DocumentDB was based on storage alone, and there were fairly large-scale debates around whether that was good value or not. So that at the time it was released that the storage would be pay-as-you-go, and you'd be charged separately for the throughput that was going through. The problem with that is it's all well and good, but actually throughput is a kind of notional thing that's really hard to figure out. So this week the team have released a nice little capacity planning calculator that you can use to get an idea of the number of request units, which is essentially the throughput that you need for your DocumentDB collection. You can put the data in and you can get an answer, and I'll run through what that is later in the technical section. The last point I wanted to make for this week is actually about some updates that have happened to Redis Azure Cache. So this week, essentially, they've released a public preview of both imports and exports facilities. Now, this sounds pretty obvious, but essentially what that will mean is that you'll be able to export data from one Redis cache and import data into another instance of Redis cache, which is pretty useful, I think you'd agree. So it's very good for transferring data generally between instances, so it's a pretty good data management tool. The other thing that they've released is a preview to a premium scale. Now, as happens regularly with various Azure platform services, they start with fairly basic and standard platform levels and increase to a premium level when it becomes more stable. This is Redis Cache's instance of that, and essentially what you get as a result of that is better performance. You get persistence, which gives you increased resilience. You get networking, so you can actually have your Redis cache as part of your virtual network, and you get Redis cache clustering. So all in all, pretty useful service for more robust and resilient Redis cache services. So I think that's a roundup of the news for this week. Back to you, Todd.
Thanks, Martin. And what are we doing in the technical section this week?
I'm glad you asked that, Todd. Well, this week it was announced that IoT Hub will now support the ability to upload files. So we're going to cover that in the technical section this week. It's quite a cool thing.
Sounds interesting.
So first we'll take a look at the new file upload settings within the IoT Hub. You can see when you click the file upload in the blade, there's a new storage container setting. You can receive notifications from your hub as well, so there's a notification there, a notification endpoint that you can go to there to look at the data that comes from it. So for this technical session, what we'll do is we'll just upload a file and prove that the whole thing works. So just first of all, we'll go to a storage account that I've created. So that's Fun with Azure, just here. If we look at the blobs, we'll see that I've already created, just when this comes up, we'll see that I've already created a file upload container, which is empty. So that's where we'll be uploading our file to. Just to prove that there's no smoke and mirrors going on, we'll just very quickly look at Device Explorer. You'll see here that I've got a file uploader device that I've created. It's not connected currently, so we have our empty blob storage and our file uploader device all ready to go. So now a quick look at the code. We can see here that we've got a couple of connection strings at the top here. There's a connection string for the IoT Hub itself and a connection string for the storage container that we'll be chucking the file up to. So we need both those, of course. We're using the service client here because this is the back end. So this is what's going to be sending a message back to the device to say, please upload a file. In the device or send clouds device method here, we've got a property where we set on the message, which is command, and that says file upload, and another property which is the file URI, which we're going to get from the blob storage container itself. We also set the acknowledgement to full because essentially, as you can see there, we want to post data to the feedback queue when this message has been completed. So looking at just very quickly at the last part of the process here, which is sending the file. So that just sends it to the file uploader device, as you can see there. So looking at the blob URI method here, you can see that basically all we do is we upload a file to our file upload blob container with a GUID device upload _ GUID. And we set a couple of properties as well. So essentially what we're doing is setting the URI, setting the method to command to be file upload, and then we're uploading the file. From the device side of things, we take the IoT connection string again. This time we're a device, obviously, so we create a device client. And this is all pretty standard stuff. In our receive function here, we basically have a loop which just spins around and just waits for messages to come in. So again, this is all very, very standard. And then when a message comes in, we check that it contains a property called command, and that is file upload. That tells us that we need to upload a file, of course. And then off we go, we upload the file. So in here, we are taking the file URI from the property of the message again, creating a new blob object. These lines just create 10 megabytes of random data, which we write to a stream. And using that stream, we upload the file to the blob container. The last part of this process is completing the message, and that then essentially says, right, okay, the acknowledgement can be posted out as a notification. So that's really it. It's very, very simple, very, very basic, but it works. So just to prove that it works, we'll now start the various little applications that we have here. So first off, we'll start our device, our simulated device. And there we are. And if we just very quickly look in Device Explorer, click refresh, we can see that that's now connected to the IoT hub. Then we'll start our back end. And this will be hot to trot when we press the key. So we'll press the key. That's then sent a message into the IoT hub for that particular device. We should then read the message. And there we are. So we've read the message. And we can see the file has been uploaded, or at least we hope it has. So if we go back to our container, click refresh, we can see there it is, the file has been uploaded. So pretty straightforward stuff, but it's all works, and of course it's a great scenario for when you can't send the right amount of data in a telemetry message, so you can use it for large messages. The other thing I wanted to cover was the capacity planning on DocumentDB. So here we just upload a very simple basic file. This file contains not very much data at all. We can then set some create, read, and delete quantities per second. And then we click calculate, and we get a magic number which tells us the number of request units. Remembering that, of course, in the new billing model, we separate storage from the number of, or the throughput for the DocumentDB. So again, you can see if we change those values, we get an updated value, and we can set our event hub we can set our DocumentDB accordingly. So that concludes it for the technical session. Thank you very much.
You may be wondering why we call this Fun with Azure.
Is it because we have fun with Azure, Todd?
Well, Martin, that is one reason. The other reason is we're going to include some fun sections in Fun with Azure.
Oh, fantastic. What are those going to be, Todd?
Well, the first section we're going to do is time zones with Tim Zon.
Fantastic.
My name is Tim Zon, and welcome to Tim Zone. Interesting facts about different time zones around the world. Today's randomly selected time zone is Western Australian Standard. As it happens, this is where we live. Before we continue with some interesting facts, let's bust a myth. Did you know that you can't see the Great Wall of China from space with the naked eye, only with instrumentation? That brings us back to our time zone, the interesting fact. Perth, being the most isolated capital in the world, is called the City of Lights by all astronauts that ever traveled around and looked down upon us, because it's the one bright shining light in a sea of darkness. See you next week with Tim Zone with Time Zone.
Thanks, Tim, and we look forward to another exciting episode of Time Zones with Tim's On next time. Martin, who have we got here?
Well, Todd, this is our new mascot. She's called Claudia, and she's amusing.
And Martin, what have we got in store for next week?
Well, actually, next time we've got a very special edition, and it's going to be about the Worldwide Partner Conference by Microsoft. And for that, we're going to be bringing in our first special guest.
Wow. We'll have to wait and see who that is.
We will, won't we?
Don't forget to subscribe and follow us on Facebook and Twitter.
I'm Martin Abbott.
And I'm Todd Elliott. And this has been
Fun with Azure. Thanks for watching.
Bye.